Darkcast Network. Come to the dark side of podcasts. We have cookies.
Cookies? Me love cookies.
Hey, I'm Gina.
And I'm Amber.
And we are here to bring you the Weird True Crime Podcast, where we cover true crime cases that will leave you asking yourself, did that really happen?
We'll dive into well-known and not-so-known cases throughout history. Some are unsolved and some are just unbelievable.
We'll also talk about current news topics that range from kooky to questionable on episodes that we like to call Weird Headlines.
Be sure to subscribe and listen on your favorite podcast service.
Hey, this podcast contains adult content, including colorful language by me. Listen at your own discretion. Hey there, Rainbow Warriors. Welcome to Beyond the Rainbow, True Crimes of the LGBTQ+. I'm your most embarrassed host, CJ. If you were one of the several hundred listeners who had to listen to the unedited version of my last episode, I am so sorry. I put it out and then realized, oh shit, wrong one. I'm so sorry you had to listen to my sniffles, throat clears, burps, long silences, and repeated paragraphs. Putting that Patreon exclusive unedited episode on this feed was a huge mistake. I didn't even know I had it still. Apparently I had 2 versions saved on my hard drive. The crappy episode is now long gone, thankfully. If you were unfortunate enough to listen to that unedited version, you probably had the chance to hear how much editing goes into this podcast. And again, I apologize for that mishap. I was also hoping to get another new episode out this past week for you, but time got away from me. To Philomu on Spotify, who sent me an answer about flying alone being scary, I loved your answer. Philomu said that they prefer to fly alone than with others because it's much more relaxing to them. And if I think about it, flying with my daughter is absolutely no fun at all because she hates flying. And flying alone to Austin wasn't as bad as I was afraid it'd be. So thank you, Philomu, for your response. And yeah, I guess I kinda do like flying alone now. My niece and her boyfriend just came and spent a couple of days with us, and it was a lot of fun. My daughter and her boyfriend took them to Seacoast Gardens for a picnic and to the Wednesday Farmers Market. They were supposed to go kayaking, but they ran out of steam. So instead, we barbecued and played trivia games on the Nintendo Switch. I had a freaking blast. The next day, we went to the beach, and then they had to get on the road and head back home to Sacramento. And they promised they'll come visit again soon. To be honest, it's not easy finding friends here on the coast of Oregon. So it was great for my daughter and her boyfriend to have another young couple to go do things with. They all got along super well, and I got a whole day of quiet to research and write. It was great for all of us. You can find me on the socials as Rainbow Crimes most places. And please consider joining my Patreon where you can get ad-free, early release episodes, a unicorn named in your honor, and an extra episode every month. Except last month, with the excitement of the True Crime Paranormal Festival, I forgot to release one. So my patrons get 2 exclusive episodes this month. The Milwaukee, Wisconsin Police Department have announced that they will no longer be using pronouns or gender identities when they go to discuss murdered and missing people. In 2022, they misgendered 3 trans people who were murdered in their city. I actually think that's kind of intelligent of them. If you can't say it correctly, then don't say it. They are also no longer saying the victim's ethnicity. Although if it's a missing person, they may want to post a picture of the missing. And that way they can allow the public to see what the person looks like. The police department knows the person is trans or gender non-conforming. They should reveal that as well. Now, I understand part of it is trying to protect the victim's privacy. But if they want help from the public, they might want to reconsider when it's appropriate to announce gender identity and race and when it's not. There is a missing trans woman or a gender non-conforming person who goes by Abby Savage in Manatee County, Florida. Abby is 31 years old, stands 5'8", and weighs about 175 pounds. They normally hang out along 14th Street West in Bradenton. Abby has not been in contact with any of their family members since April, and their family is very worried about them. Should you have any information on what happened to Abby or their whereabouts, please contact the Manatee County Sheriff's Office at 941-747-3011. This episode will be traveling to Adelaide, Australia for the case. So buckle in and let's get to the case of the Strawberry Patch Killer. 53-year-old trans woman Joanne Lillicrap. And that's the last time I'm going to say that poor woman's unfortunate last name, unless maybe I'm mispronouncing it. The last part is spelled C-R-A-P-P. Perhaps it's Lily Crop? I'm not sure. Anyhow, Joanne was a truck driver and a professional wrestler in 2001. From all accounts, she was a very kind, generous, and thoughtful woman. She was also rather lonely. Being generous and kind, Joanne volunteered at Meals on Wheels, and she would deliver food to people who needed it. These deliveries helped to combat some of her loneliness, because when she dropped the meals off, she could have good long conversations with people. Sometime in 2001, Joanne had met two lesbian drug addicts in their early to mid-30s. Thirsting for companionship, Joanne brought the women into her home, and she allowed them to live with her knowing their issues with drugs. But Joanne really wanted to help these two women kick their addiction and get healthy. Donna Lee Casagrande, a 33-year-old woman, and her girlfriend, 35-year-old Nicole McGinnis, they didn't have money or a place to live, and any money they did have went to buying street drugs. The two women dropped everything from heroin to coke to whatever they could get their hands on. Donna Lee was also a sex worker at a place called Parlor California Dolls, and she had sticky fingers. You know what? Maybe that statement about sticky fingers came off as inappropriate. The sticky fingers is a phrase you use for someone who steals things, not because she was a sex worker. I just wanted to clarify that because that comes off kind of naughty. Donna Lee met Joanne at the parlor when Joanne showed up to sell Amway products. In listening to Donna Lee's story, Joanne felt sad, so she offered her a place to live. Donna Lee had said that she would love to come live with Joanne, but she would need to bring her girlfriend Nicole as well. Joanne was over the moon. She was going to have company and companionship at last, and she was going to be able to try to help these women. When the two women moved in with Joanne, Joanne took over their finances. But this became a huge point of contention between them. In spite of the love, encouragement, and discipline Joanne provided for Donna Lee and Nicole, the two women never worked on bettering themselves. They continued on using drugs, manipulating Joanne, and stealing from her to pay for their drug habits. But if for no other reason than that the two women couldn't clean up their act, they decided they needed to leave Joanne's care. And to be honest, I think that was a dumb move. They seemed to have it made living with Joanne. One evening in November, acting on their plan to leave Joanne's and just disappear in the night, Donna Lee was searching for what she could steal and sell from Joanne. As she was doing this, Joanne walked in on Donna Lee stealing a camera from her. Joanne confronted her thief. The confrontation did not go well. Donna Lee and her girlfriend Nicole were able to get a Valium down Joanne to make her sleep. But before Joanne drifted off, Donna Lee got her to give up her PIN number of her ATM card. Donna Lee then took Joanne's ATM card to the bank. She wanted to withdraw whatever Joanne had in her account. She left Joanne sleeping with Nicole watching over her. At the bank, Donna Lee found out that Joanne had given her an erroneous PIN number. More than just a little miffed by this, Donna Lee returned back to Joanne's house. She came into the home just in time to see Nicole holding a large knife straddling Joanne's body. Nicole said to Donna Lee, "I feel like a 40-centimeter Wilshire knife has been put through her head 4 times. I think not much chance that Joanne's gonna survive this." Donna Lee was upset by what Nicole had done, but after the initial shock had worn off, she leapt into action. She ordered Nicole to help her move Joanne's body. Unable to do so, the women cried and they argued for hours. Finally, Donna Lee took the knife and began cutting Joanne's body into pieces so that she could dispose of them. The largest portion left of Joanne's body was buried in the backyard under a strawberry patch, thus giving Nicole the moniker the Strawberry Patch Killer. The other parts of Joanne they packed up in little bags, and then Donna Lee drove around Adelaide distributing the body parts in various places around the city. She was hoping that the pieces would never be found. After all the body parts had been dropped somewhere, Donna Lee took off for Sydney. This is where her elderly mother lived. She wanted to say goodbye and apologize to her mother, as she knew she would eventually be locked up. Days after Joanne's murder, her family reported her missing to law enforcement. She hadn't been to work. She hadn't been to any of her volunteer gigs. And as Joanne's family was worried about her, the guilt ate at Donna Lee. 19 days after Nicole murdered Joanne and Donna Lee had disposed of Joanne's body parts, Donna Lee turned herself in and named Nicole as Joanne's killer. Both women were taken into custody and charged with Joanne's murder, as well as robbery and concealing a crime. At trial, neither woman showed any remorse for their actions. Even Donna Lee had several court outbursts, including yelling, "Joanne sold me for sex," which was a lie, since she was already working as a sex worker. And Joanne's motives towards these women was nothing more than trying to help them. Donna Lee pleaded guilty to manslaughter, and she was sentenced to 12 years for her part in the cover-up of Joanne's murder. Nicole's sentence was a bit stiffer, since she was the actual killer. She was given a life sentence and served 20 years before being released on probation. But Donna Lee and Nicole's story, it doesn't end there. Once Nicole was out on probation, she was already clean and sober for spending 20 years incarcerated. However, she made the mistake of Googling herself, and when she did that, all of her demons started flooding back to her. She slipped back into her addiction. She was arrested and sentenced again to another year without parole. This happened in 2022, because doing drugs was violating her parole. It's possible, and most likely probable, Nicole is out again since her trial was in August of last year. Now, Donna Lee. Well, let's just say some people never learn, or they keep making the same mistakes expecting different results. And that's not the way life works. I also believe I've heard that's the definition for insanity. Good old Donna Lee was arrested again for stealing another camera, plus some computers, jewelry, and anything else she could find that was worthy to pawn off for money. This happened only 2 months after she was released on parole. Donna Lee was found with at least $18,000 of stolen goods. I'm not sure how much time she received for this offense, but by early 2019, she was out one more time on parole. This time she was now broke and homeless. But here's the weirdest part. Donna Lee's brother, 51-year-old Joseph Casagrande, he went missing. Joseph had a wife and 2 children. Joseph and Donna Lee's father had passed away, leaving an inheritance to Joseph. And after she was paroled the second time, Donna Lee went to Joseph's wife, and the two women argued about the inheritance that was left to Joseph. Days later, on March 4th, when Joseph didn't show up to pick his kids up from the after-school daycare, he was reported missing. He was last seen on CCTV footage leaving his house around 5:15 p.m., and he was carrying what appeared to be a sleeping bag and maybe a foam pad. I was thinking, well, maybe he was taking it to his sister since she really didn't have anywhere to live. The end of March, Donna Lee agreed to be interviewed by a news talk show called A Current Affair. She said she had nothing to do with her brother's disappearance, and she wanted to find him safe. She wanted to bring him home as much as his wife and children did. On the 21st of April, 2019, Joseph's body was found deceased in a tent in a remote location. Did Donna Lee have anything to do with her brother's death? That's a great question, and it's one we might never know the answers to. Rest in power, Joanne and Joseph. Our true crime quickie this episode comes to us from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just last year. On December 12th, trans man Marqis Johnson, who went by MJ, was the kind of guy who would get the party started. He was fun, exciting, full of life, and full of love. Also, December 12th, 2022, just happened to be his 33rd birthday. When MJ was 17, he told his mom, "Mom, I'm trans." Her response is what every parent's answer should be. "Listen, I don't care who you are. You're still my child, and I love you for who you are." MJ was also a twin with a twin sister. MJ was a huge advocate for trans rights and did a lot of work to get homeless trans folks housed. He was also very family-oriented. So when he didn't come back home and they couldn't get him on his phone the night of the 12th, his family began to worry just a little bit. Then the following day came and passed, and MJ's family were super worried by now, and they filed a missing persons report on MJ. Late afternoon, December 14th, emergency services would receive a call for an unresponsive person with injuries to their face. The unresponsive person was in someone's backyard in the Nicetown, Tioga neighborhood of Philly. Ambulances arrived, and the unresponsive individual was MJ. He'd been dead from blunt force injuries to his head. He also had scrapes, cuts, and bruises to his hands and arms. To me, that indicates defensive wounds. There wasn't a whole lot to go on for the first couple months of this case. And then in the middle of January of this year, police announced they had a suspect. It was a 40-year-old man named Charles Mitchell. Problem was, Charles Mitchell was no longer in the Philly area. More months passed, and finally in April, Charles emerged in Henderson, Nevada. That's right next to Las Vegas. Charles was arrested for the murder of MJ, abuse of a corpse, and tampering with evidence. I can't find where Charles has went to trial yet, nor what the motive for MJ's murder was. But if Charles' trial goes anything like the murder of a trans woman named Tracy Mia Green in Philadelphia, which happened in September of 2020, Tracy Mia Green's killer was sentenced for 17 to 35 years of incarceration. And hopefully Charles will see no less than that. Rest in power, MJ. I love you, Rainbow Warriors. You matter. And remember, it's not a crime to be gay, unless you're a murderer.